I've always loved the winter forest. The silence, the shimmer of snow under the rays of the winter sun, cozy evenings by the fire with friends. What could be better? Thus, my friends and I decided to escape from the city hustle and spend a few days alone with nature. On the first day, we camped at the forest's edge, built a snow fortress, and even had a snowball fight. Probably everyone knows the feeling of serenity and lightness when you're away from city life. In the evening, discussing old school stories by the fire, we didn't even notice how quickly time flew by. It got late, and we decided to go to bed. The night was peaceful, and in the morning, I woke up refreshed. Stepping out of the tent, I unexpectedly discovered something very strange. There were tracks, a lot of them, and they looked very odd. Huge, deep, as if some massive creature had been walking around. They looked human, only twice as big. We were deep in the forest, and encountering other people would have been odd. But an uneasy feeling settled in. Nevertheless, we tried to push those thoughts away and continue our vacation. Later, when all the conversations and jokes were over, we decided to work in the forest. And again, we noticed the same tracks. They were everywhere. Sometimes, they disappeared, reappeared, as if something was trying to jump rather than work. And it seemed like the ways were following us. A chill ran down my spine, but we were together, which gave us confidence. We continued exploring the forest, but we didn't encounter any more oddities, and we soon forgot about the massive tracks. That night, I woke up to an unusual sound. It sounded like a growl, deep and low, making the hair stand on end. I peeked out of the tent, but saw only darkness. My friends also woke up, but decided not to leave the tent. The growling got louder, as if something was approaching. I realized there was nowhere to run. Froze with fear, I waited for what was to come next. When the creature got just a few meters away, the growling suddenly stopped. After a minute, we heard a scream similar to a human's, and the beast disappeared into the forests. That night, we couldn't force ourselves to sleep. In the morning, with the first rays of the sun, we finally emerged from our tents and saw tracks. They were all around our camp. Something was here with us in the darkness. On the third day, while strolling, we stumbled upon a cave. The tracks led straight into it. This time, we couldn't resist the temptation to look inside. Deep within the cave, we found a bunch of long, coarse, dark hairs and fragments of enormous bones. They weren't human, nor did they resemble the bones of any animal I've ever seen. We didn't know what it was, but our unease peaked. After discovering the disturbing finds in the cave, my friends and I, despite our fear and thinking that the creature wouldn't return, decided to stay in the camp for one more night, hoping we could safely leave this ominous forest by morning. Night fell. The forest surrounding our camp was enveloped in eerie silence, occasionally interrupted by distant animal sounds. I woke up to a slight rustle. At first, I thought it was just a branch touching the tent, but then I heard heavy, slow footsteps nearby. Slowly peeking outside, I froze in horror. A massive creature with thick fur and eyes shimmering in the darkness stood close to us. Then, we could see it. It watched our camp intently as if pondering something. Suddenly, it lifted its head, staring towards another part of the camp. Its attention was entirely focused on something behind me. The creature began to move slowly. To my horror, I saw one of our friends standing a few meters from this creature. paralyzed in fear. But in the next moment, something incredible happened. The creature slowly raised its hand and gently touched our friend's shoulder, as if trying to comfort or warn. Then, it turned and slowly retreated into the depths of the forest. We stood still, unable to move, until our friend explained that, waking up during the night, he felt a strange pull towards the forest, as if someone was calling him there. Only the encounter with the Yeti made him realize how dangerous it was to go alone. At dawn, we left the forest, deeply shaken and changed. Only later did I realize that in the woods, we had met a real Yeti. My name is Michael, and I am a professional photographer who has always been searching for something unique. My latest adventure took me to the mysterious Sierra Nevada mountains in California. They say these places are full of ancient mysteries and beautiful snow-covered ridges where you can take incredible shots. Climbing a narrow, snow-covered trail, I felt like I was being watched. Every rustle and every movement of the wind felt significant. One day, it seemed to me that someone was watching me from behind the neighboring ridge or the dark corners of the forest. My instincts told me to be on guard. When the night covered the mountains, I set up my tent. I lit a fire, cooked a dinner of fried sausages, took some sunset shots, and went to sleep. But I didn't have a peaceful night. All night long, I was haunted by a feeling of anxiety. Then I heard a whisper. A few seconds passed, and I realized it wasn't the wind. Voices. After all, in the mountains, it's easy to hear various sounds. However, something strange happened next. Suddenly, I saw two glowing eyes in the darkness. The eyes were large and bright yellow. They stared intently at me. I quickly grabbed my camera and tried to take a picture of them. But as soon as the flash lit up the darkness, the eyes disappeared. After that, I didn't hear any sounds anymore, and it seemed that all the animals around were scared and ran away. At dawn, next to my tent, I found strange tracks. They were enormous, and I guessed it wasn't a typical animal. I felt I had encountered something unusual, something that has lived in these mountains for centuries. However, the most astonishing thing was the photograph I took that night. In it was a blurred figure resembling a vast man with glowing eyes. If this creature had attacked me, I would have stood no chance. It was both scary and fascinating, but I decided not to risk any further and head back home. Because I found what I was looking for. I, along with 4 other archaeology students, launched an expedition to the mountains to study ancient artifacts. After a long day of searching, we stumbled upon an old abandoned camp. At first glance, it was clear that something had gone awry. Scattered belongings, torn tents, and, most terrifyingly, traces of blood. The camp seemed forgotten and hastily abandoned. We ventured inside. A palpable sense of tension and anxiety lingered in the air. One of us discovered a diary with entries. Every page was filled with fear and confusion. July 11th. Our group arrived in the Appalachian Mountains in the eastern United States. Our mission was to search for and collect rare stones. July 12th. We set up camp at the foot of the mountain. All is well. The team is in high spirits and ready to work. July 13th. Oddly enough, there was an entire pile of stones right where we set up camp. July 14th. Someone roamed near our camp last night. In the morning, we found scattered belongings, possibly the work of wild animals. July 15th. We indeed felt watched. Last night, we saw shadows. It might not be just one entity. Perhaps it's a group of people. July 17th. Things took a turn for the worse. This creature tried to invade our tents tonight. We heard scratching and growling right behind us. By morning, we found tracks leading to the nearest lake. Strange sounds echoed from there. July 20th. In the evening, we spotted shadows around the camp. It seemed their numbers were growing. I believe we need to leave the camp as soon as possible. July 21st. The group decided to stay a few more days to finish the work. July 22nd. At night, we heard whispers and crying. It's hard to discern whether it's an echo or sounds from the forest. July 24th. Today, I saw the creature. It was immense, almost tree-like, covered in thick fur, resembling a human or something between a human and a beast. Its eyes gleamed in the dark. We need to leave the camp urgently. That was the last entry. Dropping the diary, I felt my blood run cold. Suddenly, the same rustlings described in the journal broke the silence. Holding our breath, we listened closely. Shadows moved behind the tents, and heavy footsteps approached. We realized we couldn't waste a moment. Grabbing the diary and our backpacks, we started running. Racing against time in the dark forest felt like a true nightmare. But when we reached the trail and looked back, the creature had vanished. None of us dared to return. The diary became our only piece of evidence. Many dismissed our tales as fabrications. Only months later, while reviewing expedition photos, I noticed a blurred figure in the background. A massive creature covered in fur, its piercing eyes watching us.